Okay, now we're getting into this really deep and interesting subject. And you might have heard a quote, and I'm just willing to offer my own gathered interpretation from various complexities and nuances that I experience and materials that I've checked out, which are not all material. Remember, 7 billion people. So I'm just throwing it out there. Something that's coming from a mix of the mind and what's being channeled. And there are so much more out there. You will choose and figure out what works with you, because it is all about that. I'm just going to try to lay down somewhat of a general explanation from what I've been able to study, but as well channel. Okay, and it's not as outside the box as some people may think. It's not, again, like I said 2 videos back, or maybe 3 now, because this thing is pouring. It's not you just Doctor Stranging things. Not simply that. So, you create your own reality. How do you do that? I've spoken about the momentum and repetition of thoughts, what that creates. There's a video back, the pro-life equation. Can explain, go back and see that. It'll explain a tad bit more. But generally, when you kind of understand how that momentum works, you are also able to understand how you imprint that momentum in your mind, whether it would be positive or negative. Whatever you focus on, you will repeat and direct your energy towards. Meaning, when I mean energy, your emotion, energy in motion. I'm taking that one from Tony Robbins. So, depending on how you repeat continuously, you will generate a certain kind of emotion, and it will become your base status. But also at the same time, as you repeat a thought with an emotion, and it becomes a belief. Because you've repeated that so often, you believe this is how it is. This is how a victimhood crisis can start out of early home bullying and then lead on to school, depending on your parenting. The initial parenting, again, unconscious definition. You guys know this speech. I need to pop a bubble there, and I understand you repeat that over and over, and it's the same process. You understand how I've kept repeating this over and over to try and make sure that people understand and don't go back into resentment for their parents for whatever happened, because they didn't understand. It's the unfortunate cyclical behavior of habits being passed down without necessarily being checked. But at the same time, fortunate, because people are asking questions that will lead to, more understanding, more philosophy, more aspects of what would make this easier for people, what would make this better. Okay, so fortunate, unfortunate, non-duality. The more you repeat this, the more you kind of integrate this in your person. But apply that rule up to everything. The more you repeat a certain kind of behavior, the more it becomes integrated. The more you repeat a certain kind of thought and emotion, the more it becomes integrated and becomes a belief. And integrated on top of the mind. You just wrote that shit on your hard drive. And what tends to happen is oftentimes we think it's normal, all right? The early child brain, 0 to 9, also another thing to repeat, but 0 to 9, we just ingest. We don't have any other material to cross-reference. And we don't necessarily have that kind of thinking process yet, unless you're taught that way, okay? In general, based on what's been happening cyclically, all right? So it becomes a belief. So you're like, if you keep hearing people saying money's hard, money's hard, money's hard, money's hard, or these people are racist, these people are racist, these people are racist, or you shouldn't be like this, you shouldn't be like this, it becomes a belief. You keep repeating that thought and that emotion. And guess what? The emotion might be, depending on your parents, or it might just be feeling like shit because you're being shunned for having that thought. So you can start seeing the links it creates, and it becomes a belief because you're like, okay, well, this is how it is. And here's the sneaky thing. Because it's been repeated multiple times, unconsciously, you didn't choose it. They didn't choose it when it was implemented. Any environment, doesn't matter if it's parent or any kind of environment, doesn't matter if it's country, doesn't matter. They didn't choose it. Nobody would consciously choose that. Nobody. Knowing the 10 steps ahead consequences, and we haven't really been taught that, right? 10 steps ahead. That's why retrospection and inner retrospection really helps, because you're able to kind of see, okay, and you get into that habit. But Having that repeated over and over and over, it develops into a belief, and the sneaky part is your mind is like, okay, that's normal. So that's in your hard drive, that's one of your process, that's your lens, that's your projector. And here's the sneaky part. Your perception is affected to see more of it. Up to a point, as I explained, you might stick in a one way, one method, one belief, one aspect of seeing things. But eventually you seek out. Oh, someone's showing you an exception? Someone's saying yo, it's easy, you can do this, you can get money this way, you can do that. The brain's already locked in. It has already searched for confirmation of its belief because of the repetition, which already implanted that initial hard drive download or initial hard drive installation. Now you're just getting more folders to reaffirm that belief, and whatever exception might come up, since you're not playing with non-duality and the mind, you're still in the mind, it's anchored. Well, then it's gonna go, no, it's not that. Pretty sure this person's wrong. I've lived that long enough, right? But you've completely forgot we're 7 billion people. 7 billion types of experience times even more now. And you're still locked in because, unfortunate consequences of parenting, you're forced to be right in a specific projection, a specific hard drive that is forcing you to be right upon it, which you can't really decide and gaze because you didn't necessarily understand that they imprinted that hard drive and that value from their own repetition, thus it became their belief, but you kind of get pain from that depending on those interactions. Yet you wouldn't want to go outside of that because subconscious mind just goes, pain! You react. I don't necessarily want to bring that up, but a friend of mine, way back, had that issue when it came to thinking about positively in general. Well, he would always have this aspect of, just must be something behind that. Or with people with money, like I used to live in a place, they were amazing. It was really amazing because I was right in the middle. There was a part that would remind me a bit more of my old neighborhood, which was not necessarily disheveled, but much more bigger, higher buildings, apartments. And then there was another side that had amazing, beautiful houses like Hollywood. And at times he would I would usually in the morning, I would walk there. That would be my morning walk because I'd feel inspired. And I wasn't at the point where I would ask people what's their mindset. I wasn't at that point, so I would never really talk, but I would be inspired by that. Yet at one point, my friend drove around that area. We were driving, all right, with other people inside that old friend group in the car. We were driving around that area, and he kind of just went, man, these people with these houses, man, they must have old money. And at that time, I kind of went, what the fuck? But now I understand it's programmed continuously. It's, again, repetition of thought. And then even if there could be another option, like we tried talking about positivity, but the mind, it's programmed, it's dead set, it's locked. This is my belief, and I'm going to seek reasons to confirm. Here's another example, conspiracy theorist. And this is how, it's an easier example to get how you can lead yourself into a momentum. Go back to a point where we all started with internet. There are various things we didn't necessarily know and then we got introduced to. When you start getting into conspiracy theory, you get a bit of piece of information from someone else's reality, someone else's projector, his lens, their hard drive, from something that they experience and develop the conclusion upon that experience, which is not necessarily understanding that they're not the mind, and the other person may not necessarily understand that they're not the mind. And there's no understanding of that relationship of being in the mind and causing actions. So you don't necessarily understand how weak it is to need someone to act a certain way, or to need to have power, to have a definition of power being forcefully implementing something on others to feel good, because that's weak, ultimate weakness. Because as soon as that ones and zeros is gone, oh no, I'm a failure. It's weak. But conspiracy theorists, oftentimes, when diving into that material, they don't understand that. And they feel threatened. So after a while, when the brain's survival mechanism gets triggered, shit, I gotta watch out. Someone could be out there. There's a couple of reports. Are there more? You continue that momentum. The thought leads, thought, emotion. Oh shit, survival, survival. Repeat that. I gotta go seek out there, because you start having a belief. A belief is starting to get formed. Look at that as a visualization. You see a gauge of belief starting to get formed. So then, okay, I gotta go out there, find more information. I gotta be safe. See? Thought, emotion, belief created, okay? Leads to, here's the confirmation bias that's going to trigger, because you need to have that confirmation. Ah, shit, I had a note on that a couple of months ago, but I had the positive momentum of it, because it really helped me understand this aspect of wait a second, what am I going through? It was something I was trying to figure out, like, and it also piggybacks a bit on Tony Robbins. He had a similar equation. Fuck, I don't necessarily know where I placed it. Oh man, but that's the cool part about journal. I know it's there, or it's in another journal that's quite nearby, but there's a specific way. Again, thoughts, emotion, repetition leads to belief, and then eventually, since your hard drive is kind of locked in, you confirmation bias kind of comes in. And I want to get this specifically because I knew at the time, I wrote it in a way, like I even made a chart that just explained the momentum of how it kind of worked. Someone else brought that up. Someone else online brought that up, and now it's gonna haunt me for a bit, right? I know he drew a little chart, and this is where, having much more of a habit to recheck your journaling notes. Not saying every day or every week, but you kind of gauge around a couple of months, right? Just to look at the previous month and what's been kind of learned. Oh boy. I can't really do that live, but I'll see if I can drop it in a comment that I'll pin whenever I find it. Because that literally kind of keeps you stuck. But once you see that process, once you kind of feel it and understand it, you just drop that. You notice the momentum that you've had on certain subjects, which created belief, and you even trying to tap back into those early folders of the 0 to 8 mind from a child to then say, but early on I was taught this subconscious. Well, I didn't consciously select it. I was taught it. It repeated, then created a belief that I kept up and continuously checked as a confirmation bias. Kind of like my old friend, still consider him a friend. I don't let hatred. Funny enough, he's into resentment and has a hard time letting that go. But after understanding that you harm yourself because it's your reaction, your triggers, your emotions, your body breaking down, your missed opportunities, your judgment upon yourself. Because if you don't necessarily understand how a person can make unconscious choice, and we're not all so versed in the 10 steps ahead, thinking in a single moment, we haven't necessarily developed that thought speed as fast, And if you want to learn a bit more about top thought speed, go check back, You're Not Your Mind, but there's a Gumroad video. Pay whatever you want or just pay nothing. There's a video about how to increase your thought speed and play around that, a conscious understanding of that. But we haven't all developed that to a point where it's like in an instant moment, we can stop our reaction and then develop that. So when you understand that, you live and let live, and you don't hold resentment. But if you don't, you're still generating that emotion, and that same thought that you have on them comes back to you. Because you're going to react the exact same way. It's always in the mind. It's the same projector. But yeah, I can't seem to find it. Might be in another notebook or somewhere around. Bloody hell. I should have started doing this earlier on, but still, upon doing that, for multiple types of beliefs and situation in life, you, again, going back to the conspiracy theorist example, you become much more attached to watching more information about this because it is now in your, as a belief. And here's where some of, we kind of break down the whole woo-woo aspect of it, you, by observing something, or just by the single fact of you observing, you being born in this world and observing, is you creating your reality. Let's break down a bit more nuances, because you're going to observe certain things and have opinions about them, and you can choose the path like we've spoken about. You can choose positive opinions or negative opinions, helpful opinions, growthful opinions, or non-growthful opinions, unity opinions or non-unity opinions, you know? And you're going to focus. You can also choose not to focus, but there's an aspect of focus that comes into that, and the more you focus on certain subjects, matters, the more you get nuances about that, the more they are present in your reality. So, if, again, you observe, but you have a choice of positive growth or not. Let's say, because positive sometimes it might not lead to growth. So growth or not, let's keep it that straight. There's more nuances to that. It's crazy. You have a choice, but it may be a conscious or unconscious choice. So there are often times we did not have conscious choice because we weren't taught that, because they weren't taught that. So live and let live. But from that, you can consciously choose on what you want to focus and how. Okay? If you still have barriers, let's say the best example, and that's a personal example of mine, was money. Because my parents had a negative view on money, because in a sense they were indoctrinated in a religion that kept demonizing money. And from that repeated thought and emotion, oh, you're going to hell if you have money, separation of oneself, the mind, ones or zero, kept repeating, okay, well, that's it. I don't want to make money. I don't want to make money. But aren't you going to do something that's fun? No, I don't want to make money. I really don't. And oftentimes they won't necessarily face that, or certain people like locked in won't necessarily face that, because that's their reality. They've repeated it over and over and over. They judge other people without knowing to bounce back, but they still feel the emotion of separation, because as you judge another, it still comes from you, and the other is practically you in that sense. But this is how, in a way, it leads your aspect of focus to various kind of subjects and branches. Money, good, helpful, or evil, dominating. Like, what are the labels and everything that are kind of attached to your various aspects of focus? And this is what the focus you're going to repeat upon, either choosing it consciously or not consciously. You can focus on health, or you can focus on illness. And as experiments, science has told you, you keep focusing on fear, it'll fuck with your body. And there was another experiment that happened, experience, in a U.S. high school, where students were told to evacuate because there was a fuming gas around the school, an invisible fume gas that would make people sick. So they just run, and they started puking because they started feeling like, oh God, the gas. And guess what? There was no gas. They just got had just like the cooties. There was nothing. They just got kicked up by cooties level 9,000. But it goes to show the placebo, what you repeat, what you believe in a moment, you know? And then confirmation, holy shit, he puked. You see that Family Guy thing? Just but repetition, you know, and affected by environment. Be careful, you know, in a way, but unconscious and conscious choice. Some people didn't puke. Some kids didn't puke. They're like, I'm not really feeling it. But they didn't want to say, because you want to watch out for other people's judgment. You know, you're still in the mind. Oh my God, my identity, if they care. And some didn't give a fuck. You know, so understand the repetition of certain thoughts. Hell, there's even text in documents that says, upon repeating a thought over and over and over and over and over, you literally kind of start seeing it in your reality. That's your mind, your lens. You affect it. You literally bring yourself to those actions. You literally lead yourself to that confirmation bias. You program it in yourself by that repetition, which is why, again, linking back to my old friend group, I left it. I learned a lot about that, and I'm really grateful. And I understand the situation that happened over there, and I'm not resentful. I don't hate their guts, and I'm not slamming on them. So, but understanding the quote of, "Oh, I'm just saying," no, you're not just saying. You take that spoken word seriously because you're repeating it. You're repeating those habits and behaviors, and that's within you. So when a person kind of just trash talks over someone else and just goes, "Oh, I'm just saying," no, you don't just dismiss that, because this is impacting your life. This is leading your momentum. Even soft little repetition will impact your momentum over time. And it's not to be worried or needing to have a just definition or a just momentum. It's just being cautious and aware of cautious choice and uncautious choice. Yet once you say, "I'm just saying," you're not necessarily fully entirely cautious of your 10 steps ahead of what this keeps repeating. And what seems to happen, and what I'm kind of puzzled with, but also very interested, is that life will find ways to tell you, "Hey buddy, what's up?" Because oftentimes it's not necessarily, and man, this is where we jump into a plethora of context and nuances there. It's not necessarily another person's reaction that could clue you in, but at the same time it can. It can and it can't. Oftentimes it could tell you, or not saying oftentimes, it can tell you whether it is you're in an environment where people are still being in the mind and reacting continuously over and over and over, and are living in a ones or zero type of mindset. So you said something, that's a zero for me. Or you legitly went and kind of like unconsciously acted towards another the same way you didn't want it to be acted towards you. Because if you repeat that same quote that you just said, "I'm just saying," okay, would you want somebody to judge? Would it feel good? How would it feel if somebody would judge you in that same way, or would talk about you in that same way? And you kind of go, if you're going to react, boom, that just told you. You just trapped the mind. Great going. Great. That's perfect. You just trapped the mind. Because if the mind reacts, "Well, fuck that person." Oh, you just, boom, you trap the mind. That's awesome. And then you can clean that up because you don't need it. You just realize, "Oh shit, I don't necessarily would want someone else to act that way towards me." Right, okay. After you caught it and just went, "Oh, you're reacting. Oh, you just play around with that. That's how you can kind of trap the mind. You just, like I said, you just reflect the mirror back, and you're able to catch that level. The other level, when it comes to subconscious thought, as I said, and maybe I'll make a video on channeling, is you just kind of go off like a riff track, like an improv, and you'll eventually catch that to the degree that you're conscious of that dialogue. Or if it's easier, just record yourself talking. Record yourself talking, look back at it, and you'll be able to spot certain things. And do not judge. Don't fall into that trap of ones and zeros. You just kind of go, "Huh, okay, I used to think like that." You already say that in the present because it's true. You change. It's not the same present moment, right? The now always continues. Now is now. Present. Now. 02, 03, 04. You see? Always now. So you've changed. You're already a different person from that point. But you look at it and you kind of go, "Oh, okay, well, let me change that. I'd love to change that. I'm spreading more good out there." And it's not the same righteous good. No, it's you're, at the same time that you're doing that, you're kind of setting yourself up in a much more understanding and accepting and insightful repetition than quick, brash, generalized judgment. And those are two different momentum patterns, which will lead you to two different results in life upon continuous repetition. You can also, again, inner retrospect, but do not judge, because you're not at this point. And the mind will try to trap you. by making you feel the emotion as if you were at that point. Again, like I said, you're not the mind. You got to watch out for that. But exactly. Shit. Sometimes the momentum just goes so fast. I smelled something. I need to change apartment. I smell other people's cooking. It's it's distracting when you're hungry. So so upon understanding that momentum of repetition, same goes with you can even add this to craft. If you keep repeating and saying that a style is the ultimate style, and this is the style that you want, this is the thing that be, well, eventually you develop a momentum of saying that this is the only thing that's really good. For me, while there, again, 7 billion, but billions of understandings and various aspects of things that will and can give you material to help you grow and evolve on that scale. So you want to be open. Let yourself be open, but understand that whatever you focus on will create your reality. As you observe and you repeat thoughts and emotion, you create a belief. And then automatically the mind, who wants to keep you safe in survival, will seek out confirmation bias to keep you in that aspect of survival. That's why when you start upon a conspiracy theory, like I lost a friend like that, he was getting into deep into that material. And years later, well, 1 or 2 years later, I tried to contact him. I tried to talk to him because we spoke a bit about philosophy, but I noticed I was getting into deep conspiration and even aspect of I got to back up my hard drive a couple of times because there's some materials that blah, 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 blah. But taking that perception from someone else's perception, from someone else who's already rolling that momentum and is putting their focus on the negative, what is not getting you to grow, what is getting you to separate from other people by judging them and labeling them as evil immediately without understanding the aspect of conscious and unconscious choice and the aspect of understanding the 10 next step of either conscious or unconscious choice. So there's multiple layers to that, and it's too bad. The guy had great artwork. I just can't seem to get in contact with him. No website, no email, no phones. Possibly off in the woods. And eventually what tends to happen, which kind of links up a bit to the law of attraction, well, it straight up does. Because your confirmation bias leads you to only seeing this from your lens. Like, I had a much better terms in the journal. It's not necessarily confirmation bias, but it's kind of like, okay, thought, repetition with emotion, creates a belief, and then conviction leads to conviction, you kind of, and then confirmation. You know, I think it was conviction. It leads you to conviction. You're like, okay, well, I got to find more source. I got to get confirmed. I got to be, survival. Ooh, got to watch out. And then it'll lead to an aspect of confirmation. Or maybe it's one before the other. But you understand the process, right? You'll seek out more things from that initial repetition, which you may or may not have chosen, the repeated thought and emotion. And then because your focus is there, you develop more material, and booyah, you've just added that to your reality. And doing this in an aspect of growth can help you completely, because you can seek out, and this is where I personally, and this goes a tad bit personal, but because of my parents, they were stuck in fear. To a certain degree, I got that. But upon accepting of people's good nature, okay, I came to accept my own. And accepting goes into deeper definitions and nuances that we won't necessarily dive into it here. But there's much more accepting and less reflecting from being in the mind state. And later along my life, like detaching a bit more from the mind, I'm like, oh wow, that was silly. And again, there's still more things, infinite type of work, the growth is infinite. But it's like, oh, so because I had that behavior, because I had that mental process, that thought, due to an initial incident that happened from their projection and point of view, which literally left an imprint Well, for a while, I wasn't necessarily seeing the good outside, thus not even seeing the good within. It became a momentum. It became inside the process. And it wasn't an aggressive one, because this is why I kind of go, there's multiple nuances and context to it. It wasn't an aggressive one or a judging one, but it was kind of like a soft aspect of, well, don't necessarily want that, not necessarily too sure. It causes a dis-ease, which causes a lack of action and can also cause literal disease. If you let the anxiety build up and, continuously bounce between others and yourself upon an unconscious choice. But then after, detaching from the mind and getting a bit more understanding on conscious, unconscious choice, non-duality, and all that stuff that I'm trying to generalize in a specific perspective, while also telling you, look everywhere, play with that, look at multiple theories. The more terminologies you get, the more nuances you get, the more explanations you get, the more you are able to tell that hard drive, hey buddy, here's all this. Here's this aspect of control that you have over your own focus, which then leads you to your different creation. And you can then purposely point your focus towards health, wealth, finances, joy. Upon you taking the exercise of just pointing towards a direction you've never really faced and looking at where the mind reacts. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, this is going to make you like this. Oh, people are going to react this way. Upon you feeling it, not mentally thinking it, just feeling it, upon a reaction, you're able to take those old beliefs, let them go. Because you understand the momentum of how a belief is created, repeated, and then affects the lens. This repetition, you see what's being done over and over and over. This repetition is how we are built and how we create our reality. Because you will incorporate a belief over time by repeating a certain set of thought and repetition. But now you have control. You can just ask, okay, well, where do I want to lead myself? Because yes, you can focus on extreme cases that you'll see on TMZ, that you'll see in all those drama, and that you'll see all over the place online. Social justice was continuous focus on the negative. And guess what happens? You develop the negative as you keep focusing on it. It builds inside you and you're like, well, it's true. Look and look, because you've been looking everywhere. Your focus is over there. Same goes with communism or various other indoctrinations. Okay? But what unfortunately happens there is, there's two ways. One, you don't necessarily focus on growth and unity. So you kind of just stay in the mind. You get stuck in an aspect of separation because you're like, my identity is this and I'm going to fight for this. So I must battle. And, this is stuff, even with this, even in non-duality, you kind of have to be careful not to fall into that prospect of things. But again, beliefs being repeated, okay? And at the same time, you don't necessarily have a view, a perspective, unconsciously, but you don't necessarily have a view and perspective on the ripples of your actions. Because just like humanity has been facing this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, left and right, religion, none, religion, science, religion, one way, one path, ones and zeros, social justice, alt-right, one path, ones and zero. Just like that, you cause an elastic band on whoever might just be tired of it and go, fuck it. Because they will react to your reaction. And they won't make a cautious decision reaction, or oftentimes. Sometimes it does. Many times. You know what? Times. I'll rewrite that. I'll rewrite that in my brain. Sometimes, at times it does, at times it doesn't. At times, yes. At times it does, and at times it doesn't. But you're still playing the risk of a more of a percentage of wristbanding that elastic onto the opposite. That's why people just got sick and tired of being shamed and labeled over time. And you can see that in various, it's not just social justice, but every kind of political movement, every kind of extreme indoctrinated social status. In Quebec, we said, fuck off religion, and there were consequences, to that, positives and negatives. But you can see that eventually there's a breaking point, just like in everyone's life, and even mine. At one point there was a point where I just had to ask, okay, there's more to this. I can't just stick in this negative moment all the time. Ironic, because I'm wearing a black shirt, but who knows? If definition of negative is having a black shirt, then fuck it. But I do want to get better shirts. But you see, you don't keep on that. Like at that point, I kind of went, okay, fuck that momentum, because I'm not gaining anything and I'm not outputting anything from it. Mindset wise. That's why, to a certain degree, some people saw me disappear online. There had to be that time to just have that self reflection and kind of start playing with that without necessarily being affected by past point of views. And then just taking that time to just look into it. I didn't in a sense way because I was looking at multiple materials, but still, I didn't want to wristband back to right, left, right, left, right, left, Had my time marching against the government once when it came to an incident we had in Quebec. And even then, I saw that some of the people I was marching with were actively being aggressive towards cops, towards civilians who didn't necessarily join the cause. And at that point, I'm like, what the fuck? But again, I was still in the mind, and I guess my definition was at that point, this march is for peace and to just try to get justice in a way, and not, just to send a message to the current minister? No. I forgot the title. You see, I don't care about politics now. I completely forget their title. In Quebec, we have a specific term. Yeah, I think it's minister. Jesus Christ, wow. The amount of fucks I don't give over politics, because I stopped judging. I stopped taking people's labels of someone else without knowing the person. As soon as I see another person in the news and in the media, I'm still practicing as much as I can when it comes to interactions out there, but I still have that stop moment. And I have that stop moment. This is a fun technique. Use it, okay? If you guys saw Terminator Genesis, okay? I have that stop moment where I look at my own thoughts, and it's like a shadow move being sent on various possibilities of thought, and starting to look at how it reflects back onto me. So the shadow move that's being sent by the thought is automatically reflected back to me, and I see the multiple types of possibilities that I'm sending out. Which one am I going to receive that I'm gonna enjoy? If it's this person is doing this and is evil for this, and I have that perception, or I even consider having that perception, the shadow move that I send is going to come right back at me and go, well, you can be seen in that same way. And it's like, oh. And how does that feel when you're seen in that same way? Well, people don't necessarily know my context. Yeah, of course, because they don't know what they don't know. You don't need that to be, but you too. Oh, and right then and there, you start altering your reaction, thus altering your perception of reality at the same time, because you took that moment, started shadow moving, and effectively got them back to see how you would react. And one of the behaviors we kind of have to be extremely careful about this. Back from the old environment. Yo guys, shout out. Thank you. I learned a lot from you guys. In a great way. One of the behaviors that's quite often, and same goes for my parents, I'm really thankful for all of this, is that oftentimes our brain, because of survival mechanism that we didn't necessarily know about, it'll think about extremes when it comes into these concepts. It'll automatically jump into extremes. Get it? Ones or zero. So what if a person had a knife in the street and was about to assault me? Answer right now. What if a person was about to kill you? And it's like, okay, but first. Sorry, survival brain, survival mind. You poke the brain directly. What would be the necessary pattern of thoughts and emotions that would lead me in a situation where that would happen? That's an initial question, because you want to keep that from You want to keep the mind from going further with its extreme. You stop it. You counter. You street fight. You parry, and then you'll get your own answer. But then also, what is the context of this other person? Because if this person's legitly outside of their mind or is unconscious of it, you have full rights to go full Johnny Cage and let it be. You know what I mean? You have full rights to go just Johnny Cage and let it be, because this person is unconscious of their action and is outside of their mind, doesn't necessarily know what they're doing, and the 10 steps ahead. You don't put an expectation on everyone, but you understand that that's what's happening. Shit, I can understand in a moment, in a glimpse, you're not necessarily conscious of that, but out of reaction, bam! That's it. You're not going to go over there and just continue beating, because that's you doing it to yourself and having an aspect of, okay, well, you were definitely 100% sure and conscious of your action and what it would do to your life, so I'm going to give you the beating of your life. Like, no! You get shit karma from that. Certain people are pushed, like said, certain people are pushed by their own ideals and beliefs to a degree that they're going to act irrationally. Like taking a complete utter extreme. Again, you don't want to fall into that trap, because now you're taking the other extreme of just, this person attacked me, so fuck him. You know? You're taking that other extreme, and then you're perpetuating that in your consciousness. I mean, again, lots of different nuances. You could always go fight in UFC or mixed martial art. It's a completely different thing. But you see, you dive into those complexities and nuances when you parry the mind's habit of survival, fight or flight, fight or flight, fight or flight. And at that point, guess what? You still have more conscious control of what you create in your reality. Repetition of emotion, confirmation biases. You don't let a single event or a single, or even worse and possibly not worse, a single perception of an event, always coming from a mind, always coming from a perception, see that repetition. You don't let that affect you and build your own lens, your own perception, add that to your reality. You don't let it. I had, when I used to live with my mother, fearful, understood, country, she would, because she was working in medicine, she would continuously tell me, you have a weak immunity system, you have asthma, you got to watch out for this, you got to watch out for that. And when I was living over there, I was fucking sick so often, 5 to 10 times a year, because there's always, okay, you got to take this, not to get sick, not to get sick. Where does the sentence end? Where does the hard drive record that last sentence? Sick. Repeated over and over and over. You got to watch out. You got asthma. You're not going to be able to breathe that much. You're not going to be able to do sports. You got to watch out. You got to be careful. You always hurt yourself. Always hurt yourself. Repetition of the mind. Early on, I did have many scars, but that's because this person kept repeating that in my mind. Thus, at that early age, I kept thinking, shit, I do have that tendency. I do have that. Instead of, what can I do not to get these kind of scars? How agile do I need to be not to get that? How can I take those falls a bit better? Because the person that was teaching me did not know how to take those falls because they weren't taught. Over years, asthma gone. I fucking played DDR, bitch. And that's not saying that to my mom. I'm just like, split DDR, bitch! Like Dave Chappelle. Love you, Dave Chappelle. Love the comedy. I'm going to play that 3 seasons over again. But yeah, I played DDR. When it came to sickness, as soon as I left the environment that kept repeating those thoughts, and left workplaces as well that kept repeating over and over, let me tell you about how sick I am. Or let me come to work while I'm sick to show you that I'm sick. But I'm still coming to work because I feel justified. And again, 1s and 0 of the mind. Don't worry. Well, eventually I'm just like, maybe once, maybe like serious type of, like serious type of stuff. Like flu. Or intense, kind of like chronic, long term type of deal. You know, stuff that would last two, no, stuff that would last 3, 4, 5 days will kind of last maybe a night and maybe an entire day. Like there were times where I felt a fever. I just took my neocitrin, knowing in my mind that I would feel better because I've tested it multiple times. So I repeated that belief in my mind, and then eventually in the morning, am I feeling well enough to work? And there were times where it's like, you know what, I do, but not optimally. So I don't necessarily want to go at work in a non-optimal state. And non-optimal for me is not even, it's not Kleenex moment. It's kind of like I'm feeling a bit woozy because I was kind of wrestling that at night. So I'm not necessarily optimal, and I might not necessarily pay attention to everything that I kind of wanted to do at work. I was a bit of a tryhard at work, but at times it helped and it didn't help. So there's various nuances to that. But you can kind of see the repetition of thought. Eventually it's like, oh, sickness. Okay, yeah, sure. Neocitrin, that's done. You know, my mind, I programmed my mind, not knowing this, to repeat this. And funny enough, it came out of resentment for what happened prior, which now I see as a great gift in a way. Because I understand, by doing the retrospection, I understand how I can kind of program my mind. And I consider this video and this talk a great gift because I'm able to channel thoughts and ideas that lead me to these hunches, to these back to the past type of stuff, which leads me to understand this in a much more conscious way. Which is why, again, everything is a blessing and not at the same time. Yet depending on your focus, what's been done in this video, depending on your focus, you can lead yourself towards the blessings that you create upon yourself. Which is it also in a way how charms, you know, sigils, crystals, well, not entirely. Crystals have something else with energy, but the base level of that is a thought that you repeat upon holding it. This can also be down into the negative when you think about various things, triggers that would lead the mind. This could also even be brought to the digital world, depending on how often you've repeated that, and that the brain is like, okay, well, I'm used to thinking about that in this way. This is a habit. This emotion and thought are habits, thus belief. And now with that conscious control of this understanding, and if you don't necessarily get it, again, do this kind of inner retrospection. Listen to this video again, pause, and reflect upon what's been happening with you in a non-judgmental way. Don't let the mind even sneak you into that. And try to visualize how you can change those timelines. Again, timeline revision is one of the best things you can do for yourself because you're getting the growth. It's like what I've told you about learning, the emotion change, and you're still growing. But you understand how you grow or which direction you kind of grow into. You grow or you diminish in a sense. Oh man, terms and terminologies. But you notice which direction you go and what ripple effects it has on you and everyone else after a couple of those retrospectives or introspection. And you feel much more in control. You are and you aren't. And you accept that. You completely accept that. But you gain much more control over your reaction and your projection. And you get into less needing of survival. Because, again, you're entirely in control. You create your reality. You can focus on things that will help you grow and get that momentum going or not. You can focus on things that will help you grow or not. You can focus about things, all of that, you know? And that's why, again, a great example, and you kind of would want to play with that aspect of reflecting back. Am I developing a bit of that conspiracy theorist type of thing? Because again, it's been a habit of judging them, but not necessarily knowing how the momentum is built. And it's the same way you can judge yourself and not necessarily knowing how your momentum is built. So once you kind of understand that, you live and let live, you grow, and you kind of go, okay, what do I want to focus on? What would feel great? And then you ask, as you say that, okay, you see the 10 steps ahead. And guess what? Didn't you just observe that? Didn't you just feel that? Didn't you just create that? And upon repeating it more and more and more and more and more, you imprint the hard drive and you lock that in. You create your own reality, man. There's so many more complexities and nuances but I hope that was as basic as I could put it, because it's 50 minutes in. There's so much stuff to talk about, and the importance of the live and let live repetition. I think this could be one of the biggest keys you could start getting into. The live and let live, understanding and repeating the nuances that are in that, the cautious and unconscious choices, and understanding those kind of ripples. Not in a needy way, but play with that. Hey, just the fact that you would write this in a journal, let's say, as an intention, you've already perceived it, you've already observed it. As you write it, you kind of feel, okay, how would it feel? In a way. You know, you're not just writing it blindly, in a sense. As you write, it does activate nerves in writing. Typing, much less nerves. And so there's a bit of something that you'll get out of that tactile thing with journaling. But to each their own. Who knows? Certain people could get into a large aspect of deeper thoughts when typing. They may get this visualization aspect when typing. Yet, I think it's mostly because you have keyboard, you have that hand-eye coordination when it comes to typing your intentions, and kind of like your focus is on how it's written, or how it's the perfection of it. Even when it comes to making a mistake in the word, you'll get that little squiggly line. You're watching out for that. You're really focused on that. But when you're writing it directly on paper, and because your attention is right there. There's not that hand-eye coordination. There's not an extended focus on, getting it right, and you have much more RAM power, like I said, in You're Not Your Mind, and some other videos on that Gumroad, some other audios on that Gumroad. You're not putting your RAM of thought speed entirely on the action. You're actually putting a part of that RAM on visualizing what you want to create, or what would feel great, which automatically kind of creates it in your observation. But repeating the thought, you've already grown. You felt it, all right? So it's real. You felt it. But repeating that anchors that into your mind, becomes a habit, becomes a behavior, and it becomes normal to you. And you're going to get your confirmation bias in the positive. And you completely allow stuff like conspiracy theorists or people still stuck in a negative momentum, because you understand, it's not really that easy. It takes time. It takes an aspect of wanting to do it. Well, one, believing that you can do it, which is understanding the momentum, but then you first have to allow yourself to listen to it. And sometimes you may be locked into a pattern so deeply that it's like, no, fuck what this person is saying. Click. And it happens. The inevitable cycling of habits and behaviors through our history and civilization. And it's a momentum. But here's the thing. Through osmosis, they ain't got any choice. Again, like I told you, when you smile, you kind of tell them, because society, again, it's not saying society is all bad and this negative cycle of it all is all bad. There's a lot of positive and good that's gained, especially this kind of material. So when you smile, someone else kind of want to smile back because it's impolite, one of the tricks that you can use with the mind. So smile. As soon as the other person smiles, or kind of feels forced to smile, there's a bit of a percentage that goes up to, well, I feel good. Yeah. Because when you smile, your mood is lifted. Try smiling in a mirror again. Grin. Try to be mad. Not like that little snot. Don't try to be a little snotty high schooler, sarcastic. Because again, once you create sarcasm in your reality, you have just done. Because same projection, same hard drive. You'll use it on yourself. Stuck in the same projection, stuck in the same mind, stuck in the same reality. You think, oh, well, sarcasm is normal, right? And you don't necessarily see the 10 steps ahead. So, no, just try it. Can you be mad right now? Just, and you see someone else smile, so you're like, can you? It is infectious. And guess what? Like I said in that other video, you might have lifted a little percentage in that person's mind that would change them for an amount of time and will ripple down onto the people in their environment. So it's not even a need. You just did it naturally, just by being happy. Naturally, just by smiling back. And hey, all of this is a practice. Again, all in the gauge. Hell, you might even find a different way. Just get people to smile. And they're like, what the fuck? And they already changed their state. And I like the way Tony Robbins and various other people, even meditation, Neville Goddard, preacher from the old days, linked it to the Bible in a great way. And Tony Robbins links it in much more of a proactive way. But it's understanding. You change state at any point. That's why I tell you, do not judge your past self, even if it's 1 second away. You change state at every moment. Anything can kind of make you change state. You watch something on the news, my day's ruined. And it's not, because you're going to go pet your cat and your mood is going to lift up. Interchanging states of the mind based on conscious and unconscious reaction. Because if you're in a bad mood, you can take a conscious reaction and say, I'm going to listen to some music. Yeah! And your state just changed. You did it. Fuck yeah. So you have more conscious control of it. It's just knowing, being interested, and allowing yourself to see in a non-dualistic manner the ins and outs and the possibilities of things that can change, as well as understanding the momentum of certain things. But you play with that. You don't make it too serious. You're not in the need aspect, but because that's a trap. Play around. Write in a journal. See what happens. Reflect back upon yourself in like 2 days ago, a month. Previous job, previous apartment, previous schooling, previous fan group. You play around in that and you don't let the mind judge. Remember, it's always going to bounce off in you. But if you do see it, clean it up. It's normal. It's happened. It's our system to know when we separate from ourselves and everyone else. Because we're the soul. We're not the mind. Well, the controller is the soul. We're the mind-body-spirit complex. But the controller that you're holding, the you that can make all these conscious decisions, is the soul. The one that's expanding continuously is the soul. The mind keeps a repetition, so it's not necessarily expanding. It's expanding in one way, it's in its own repetition. But when you kind of look at it in the grand scale, it's not really expansion. Not the full definition of what you could get from expansion, the full growth. So you're lenient. You're completely lenient toward yourself, and you're lenient towards everyone else. And you kind of accept this aspect of, okay, we all kind of learn. And you're not in the finger-pointing way of, you got to watch out for that. Well, maybe you can do it in a playful way, but it's not the, you're doing that. You see, there's a difference to it, because you'd be pointing at the same thing towards yourself, and then you'd feel bad because you feel separated from yourself because you one's and zero. This is wrong, or this is right. You see what I mean? Woo! And that's how you can start playing and creating your reality. Even the media that you ingest over and over and over, like I said, subconscious repetition of expectation, it is not the media's fault. Because you are watching, you are clicking in, you are choosing, consciously or unconsciously. Same goes for the spreading of ideas, consciously or unconsciously spreading ideas. You see what I mean? It kind of goes, okay. And you get to the understanding that, wow, you're in control of your own happiness because of your own focus. And the nuances that you, again, go back to the pro-life equation, the nuances that you discover and keep rediscovering upon focusing on that aspect of joy, happiness, and everything in the aspect that you like, your conscious creation. And you also understand the weakness that is, I need other people to be this way, I need my students to be this way, I need my kid to be this way for me to feel happy. You understand the weakness in there, because it's still ones and zeros, the mind, expecting context of others. We're expecting expecting others to fit into your context, in a sense, Again, cyclical behaviors, and it's just draining. Now, there's so much more material like this, and feel free to go around and check it out. Again, this is not a guide, this is not an absolute. Just check it out. Non-duality, man. Play with this. And you literally create your own reality, and you're going to find out more factors and nuances that can help you go in different spaces, go where you actually want to, and you're going to figure out where you stop because of some old programming, and then you clean it up. So play. It's a game, man. It's in the game. All right. Again, big thanks to Don Reg. He has brought some interesting point that just spawns into those triple threat. It's been amazing. I wish Scott Atkins, Tony Jaw, Tiger Chen were all here as well. Michael J. White too. Need some more kicks in my life, but it brought this triple threat of topic that just had me growing like fuck today, and I hope that this can help other people as well. And yeah, the swearing. If you're still triggered by swearing, then so am I. What's your definition of that? Look at it. Play. But again, all this with balance. I'm not gonna go unless it would be comedic value. And even then, would it help the message? Would it help people understand? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I am not responsible for that. But the intentions are good, not out of a need. I don't need you to understand all this. You'll figure out your own specific balance, and that's the coolest part, because you'll choose cautiously, not reject out of negativity and just fear, which is basically survival. I don't want to be wrong, or good, bad, right, wrong. You're wrong, I'm right, and blah 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 blah. You're no longer in that. You just play around. You figure out your own balance, and you're comfortable with that because it fits to who you are, what your soul is, and naturally, you gotta understand, from the blank hard drive, it was always the soul. Naturally, we did not have that divide. We were loving, playful, well, still are, but just bring you back to the beginning point, that you can bring it up in the now, and this is where non-duality just slaps you in the face, because as I say, go back then, you feel it in the now. So you still have that part. And this is where I kind of reflected the whole projector video a couple of times. Loving, playful, curious, adventurous, testing things, we still have that. Hey, as you watch somebody growing and learning and you feel that, you still have it within you. If you feel something else and you're still in judgment, clean that up. It's all a balance, and you find your own balance in relationship to your own soul that ultimately is this aspect of light. And now it's just cleaning up all the BS we've kind of unconsciously implemented in our reality through focus and, saying, oh, well, it's someone else's perspective, so I need to kind of follow that. No. We just need to clean that up. And not be resentful. Just, okay, that's your momentum. If you don't necessarily understand where your momentum is leading you, that's fine. We weren't necessarily taught that. And I don't necessarily need to take the time to explain it to you, because I want to interact with more people and have fun. You consciously choose your focus. Arguments are just, okay, bye. You let it go. Not in the higher than mighty thing, and not in a resentful way. It's just like, okay, well, you're going to leave that momentum. I kind of had to leave a friend group because of that, because it would take way too much time. Especially, I didn't even have the knowledge to explain it that way. It would take way too much time, back and forth arguments, and uncertainty of one's projection and how they ingest that kind of information, because a lot of them were stuck in resentment. And again, understanding the cyclical nature of it all, and also, how the mind impresses and how you create your reality. I can see it now. I can understand it. But at that time, I didn't understand it. But I also understood that it wouldn't be worth taking the time to explain all of that, because we were trained, indoctrinated to be snappy. You got to be snappy like a TV show. You got to talk like a rabbit. I can't take the time to listen to you because you got to talk faster, but you also got to make it clear and simple. Like quick, snappy. Come on, give me the big lines. And it's like, no, that's how shit happened in history. Snappy, quick decision, rational. Kill your neighbor. No. Now you can see it like that, but at the time it's like, oh, okay, well, live and let live. Thank you for everything I've learned, and I'm super grateful for that. But live and let live without resentment. And now it's like much more obvious. So arguments, done. There's no argument. If it dives into, and there's a nuance between arguing and philosophical discussions, growth discussion, growth leading discussion. And again, you find that you're dynamic here and there. It is always a play. You kind of find this back and forth. You get more adjusted to the other person. This is why, like I said, parents, couples, you get into this other side of the game, because you kind of understand how to work with dynamics, you know? It's not just ones or zero, because that same ones or zero, my way, my specific aspect, or my one way is going to be reflected back onto you. And at times, life just brings it up. It's very fascinating. Sometimes life just brings it up. It brings you an event that you just kind of go, oh, oh. And it's cool when you're able to take it. When you're not able to take it and you're still stuck in the mind, well, you're going to be like, fuck it. There's many times where I kind of caught myself through another person's video on certain extremes of compassion or extremes of wisdom. You know, like I said, some of the documents I've checked, it's like I caught myself because of someone else's action. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Because of that, there was a whole scale of understanding, and this is why I'm able to channel now in this interesting way. There's a whole scale of understanding that kind of led to complete non-duality because of facing those events over and over and over, and then asking the question, yo, there's got to be more than life. So, again, it's not completely negative, and it's not completely positive at the time. You see, it, woo, kind of goes nuts, right? At the time, I thought of it somewhat negative, somewhat neutral, but now I'm like, holy fuck, there's a huge aspect of growth in there. Man, that was fucking positive. So you see how you change state, you change opinion, you change thoughts every time really fast, depending on how your focus is. You create a whole different set of reality for it. I could go into a much more personal video at another point to go into a bit more, or attempting to bring certain thoughts, nuances, and emotions that led certain aspects in my life, to kind of just make an example, to give an example, not a blueprint, but just an example of how it can run, how momentum can run, and in a deeper level, to the degree that it comes, and then guess what, it's going to get extended like this, because when, upon letting go of ones and zero, again, you let the thoughts flow, you literally channel these aspects and reasoning of consciousness, and it's fascinating. Your state just changes because you've grown. It's fucking cool. But man, the one little niche that I would want you to watch out for is niche. I'm talking about maybe a linchpin, or maybe a habit you didn't necessarily want, is to pause videos every time and then have that reflection back and forth on various videos. At times it'll take the time it takes, but yo, give yourself a break. That's why I say you don't need to. I enjoy making those videos. A person was saying you work really hard, or you must be working really hard. And what I find interesting is, in this state of just understanding most of this and having repeated most of this, it just flows. It's not hard work. Like, the day just flew by, and I'm like, man, I want to finish a freelancing commission, but the growth that I have is tenfolds maybe the growth that I would have in a different area. Or not necessarily comparing, but I just focus on the growth that I had, because who knows, I might have had a different kind of growth, but still a growth while working on the commission. Different kind of thoughts, different kind of opinions, different kind of customized ideas, maybe ideas for little skits that I might do soon. Like various things, but different kind of growth, but it depends on your focus. See, right now I'm focusing on the growth that I've had by trying to explain this to you in the most general way, but then came into so many much more understanding and nuances there that, you know, but it's like, yeah, okay, now I'm able to shadow moves my own thoughts a bit more accurately, you know, and then practice it a bit more. I'm not trying to be super perfect. There is no perfection. People living off with the ones or zeros of perfection, again, it's still in the mind, and it hurts oneself. Once you get a zero, you're like, ah! So, play with this, but understand, thoughts and emotion, repeated, will lead to a belief, whether consciously or unconsciously chosen, which will then lead you to seek that confirmation bias, that conviction, or that confirmation? Yes, confirmation, to seek that confirmation. You know, survival, I need to be safe, so I need to be right, I need to be safe, so I need to find that. And then, still in the mind, not activating the pineal gland, because once you activate that shit, that's a whole different video. But then you get your conviction. You're like, this is a belief, this must be how it is. But you always had conscious or unconscious choice. Just flip it. while looking at the understandings and the 10 different steps that you'll get, and also the whys. And then let it go, let it go, let it go. Play. Be awesome. The awesome that you are, that you're bringing up to Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3. We don't count GT. No Pilaf. He was in the mine. He needed to have those Dragon Ball, and he needed to have Goku little. And you straight up go to Ultra Instinct. Did I skip Super Saiyan God? Yes. Joking, but you kind of understand the pathway. Play with this. Thanks again, Don. Amazing. Amazing. Thanks again. Don't know if I'm going to upload this all day. I don't necessarily want to bombard these people with ideas in a single day. I understand you guys have time, but at the same time, this just keeps flowing. It just keeps flowing. So I'd like a bit of opinion. Should I start trying to, well, I know there's certain things like little drops and nuggets of consciousness that I would have to drop on Gumroad for free or whatever people want to pay. If it helps you and has acquired you value, sure, place whatever it is to the degree that you do, but this shit just keeps flowing. And my phone often gets over flooded to a point where I have to delete certain past stuff. Because I've already moved out of that state. I've moved out of that state of consciousness. Yet more and more I start thinking, okay, would this help someone? How can I help someone? You know? And that's what I'm starting to think. Okay, let's just drop nuggets of that kind of stuff instead of making a full hour videos so that people can get audio files, play them at their time, not necessarily see my unpampered hair and this weird camera angle, which is cool. I love that. Just my SNK style background. But, you know, making it another form to do. And for me, it would save my hard drive space on video. But at the same time, if it makes it more accessible, awesome. And whatever little chunks of nuggets that I kind of get, I'll put them in audio. Sometimes it literally sparks out of nothing. I'll maybe working on something, then thinking about how does that relate back to something I used to live. What's the breakdown? And then start seeing multiple breakdowns, trying to put them in a general aspect. And then, okay, here's an instance, a little instance of possible nuances here. But there's other. But now you're able to kind of see it from a breakdown. So you might be able to do some retrospect. I love being able to help that way. I don't need it. But if it helps people even further, and it's easy for me because, again, it just comes, I'll just do it. And just find a way to, maybe I'll place it on the Facebook page. Maybe I'll make a funny little advertisement about it. Just drop those nuggets. And if it helps people, cool, you can pay. If it doesn't really help you, that's cool. You know, you can always go back. You know, you can always take those, not pay, and then go back afterward. It doesn't really matter. Is it helping or is it not? For me, it's just flowing. And if it's helped people, like it has helped people have been giving me comments, some back and forth, we've got some cool discussion and developed even further, then to the degree that you can. Hell, remember, creation of thought, creation of belief. Even I'm learning that, especially in the aspect of money. Like not wanting to take a certain amount for freelancing that I do based on the experience that I have. Like, again, multiple subconscious patterns. We're all dealing with this. This is to help people not to fall in the same pothole, but also seeing that they have much more conscious control and they can, again, play with the shadow move visualization. Play with the Ready Player One VR. Play with all of this, and then figure out, hey, you see it in your mind, you feel it, you've already created it. It's already created. Repeat that. You anchor it. It becomes normal for you to feel that way. The same goes with negative thoughts and trauma and repetitions of trauma. So, play. We're all in this together, guys. You have your own experience and own context and nuances to the degree that you're able to explain it or try to explain it to another person without necessarily needing them to understand the exact same granularity. You may be able to shed some light to other people with your very own experience. And inevitably you do it because people kind of bounce off what you send out. This is very interesting yes and no kind of complex, non-duality. Your best friend. So thanks again, guys. Kick some asses, and I'll see when I start setting that up, because yeah, this seems to be a much better idea instead of just bam, 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 on video, you know. Maybe Maybe not. We'll see. You'll pick and choose, and the subject will be there. You'll pick and choose what you really feel. It's your choice. It's what you feel, man. What you enjoy. Yeah, you choose. That's how you create. Your choice and focus creates your reality. I went full Shang Tsung. I love that movie.
Do not be a weak, pathetic fool who needs to control. This is how Shao Kahn died.
And this is how many others in history kind of died. Ones and zeros, man. When you rip Elastic Man, remember that. Play with this. We'll talk more about some context and nuances. I'm tired! Back to back, man. Thanks, Don, and everyone. Have a great day.